The year was 2784, Galactic Standard Calendar. The Velari Dominion had spent the last 4 centuries swallowing everything in its path. 832 species catalogued, 791 of them pacified or exterminated. The remaining 41 had either fled beyond the galactic rim or were in the process of learning why resistance was pointless. Earth was not even on the list. The Dominion strategists had marked the Sol system as pre-sapient remnants, possible archaeological interest only. The last reliable data on humanity dated to 2147, when a Velari scout frigate passed through the system and recorded a handful of primitive fusion torch ships crawling between Mars and Jupiter at 0.0004 C. Radio chatter had been enthusiastic, but incoherent. No signs of gravitic manipulation, no quantum wake signatures, no weapons capable of scratching battleplate. The file was archived under Extinct Curiosities and Forgotten. So when Grand Executor Crushball ordered the 4th Suppression Armada to the Perseus Transit Corridor, the inclusion of the Sol waypoint was almost an afterthought. A single planetary assault legion, 12,000 vessels, 3 million troops, would drop in, glass whatever ruins remained on the 3rd planet, seed the atmosphere with disassemblers, and move on. Estimated opposition, none. Estimated duration, 6 hours. They arrived above the ecliptic on schedule, and the universe broke its own rules. At 9 hours 14 minutes and 22 seconds Dominion Standard Time, every gravitic sensor on every ship screamed at once. Something impossibly massive had simply decided to exist where nothing had been a picosecond earlier. No hyperspatial bloom, no Cherenka flash, no translation wake. One moment the space above Luna was empty. The next moment it contained a warship. The Velari called their own dreadnoughts Moonkillers. This thing made Moonkillers look like rowboats. It was 29 kilometers long, matte black, and shaped like a weaponized cathedral. Tapered spires, Gothic buttresses of alloy, ribs of blue-white energy pulsing between armor plates thick enough to swallow continent busters without noticing. No visible engines. No emissions. It just hung there, silent, ancient, and wrong. Across the Dominion fleet, targeting Auspex tried to lock and failed. The ship had no quantum signature, no mass shadow consistent with its apparent size, no heat bloom, no electromagnetic footprint. It was less a vehicle than a hole someone had cut in reality and lined with metal. Then it spoke. The transmission arrived simultaneously on every frequency, every encryption layer, every personal implant in the fleet, in flawless high Velari. This is the Terran Confederation Star Vessel TCSV Eternal Vigilance, hull designation 001. You are trespassing in Sol territorial space. Power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded or be removed. Grand Executor Crushball stared at the forward holotank. The image of the human ship rotated slowly, drinking in light like a black hole with manners. Around him, the flag bridge of the suppression flagship Pillar of Annihilation was silent except for the hiss of ventilators and the soft, panicked clicking of claws on consoles. Crushball was old, even for a Velari, nearly 400 cycles, and had personally overseen the extinction of 19 species. He had never felt fear. He felt it now, cold and chemical, flooding his circulatory nodes. Status of the Assault Legion, he said, voice flat. His tactical officer's frills had gone pale violet. All ships report full combat readiness, Executor. But our targeting matrices refuse to assign threat values. The human vessel is rejecting probabilistic modeling. It is listed as inadmissible geometry. Open fire, Crushball ordered. Everything. Now. The 4th Suppression Armada obeyed. 12,000 ships unleashed hell. Gravitic imploders, antimatter lances, phase-shifted torpedoes, tachyon shatterbeams. Every weapon the Dominion had ever invented converged on a single point of space. The combined energy release briefly outshone Sol itself. When the glare faded, the human ship hadn't moved. Hadn't even warmed up. A new transmission. That was your one warning. Then the Eternal Vigilance did something no one in the Dominion had ever seen. It unfolded. Armor plates the size of cities peeled outward like petals of obsidian steel. From the cavities between them rose structures that hurt to look at, impossible angles, edges that curved back into themselves, lattices of blue fire that wrote equations in 4 dimensions. The ship's mass reading spiked from uncertain to infinite and stayed there. A single lance of white light, not a beam, not a particle stream, just light, touched the nearest Dominion battlesphere. The battlesphere, a sphere of neutronium-reinforced battleplate 2 kilometers in diameter, simply ceased. No explosion. No debris. One moment it existed. The next it was part of the background temperature of space. The fleet panicked. Ships tried to jump. Their drives registered ready, accepted coordinates, and then politely refused to move, as if the concept of elsewhere had been temporarily revoked. Creshball watched 10,000 vessels die in the first 90 seconds. Not destroyed, erased. The human ship never fired a recognizable weapon. It simply looked at things, and they forgot how to exist. Then it stopped. The eternal vigilance folded itself closed again, armor sliding home with the patient grace of a predator sheathing claws. Silence returned to the battlespace, broken only by the whimpering of dying reactors. A final transmission, this time addressed solely to the flagship. Grand Executor Creshball, you will come aboard. Alone. Your fleet will hold position and power down all but life support. Any attempt to flee or fight will be interpreted as a refusal. You have 5 minutes. Creshball felt every year of his age settle into his bones. He looked at his staff, officers who had burned worlds without hesitation, and saw only terror. You're late, the human said in accentless High Velari. I expected you 3 minutes ago. Traffic. Creshball stopped 10 meters away. His frills betrayed him, flaring wide in submission before he could clamp them down. You are the commander of this vessel? Captain Elias Mwangi, the human replied. Though titles are mostly ceremonial these days. And your Grand Executor Creshball, currently responsible for the deaths of roughly 7 billion sentient beings across 12 star systems. That about right? Creshball had faced tribunals before. He drew himself up. The Dominion claims all territory within. Stop. The human raised one finger. I'm not here to debate your legal fiction. I'm here to deliver a message. He gestured, and the chamber walls dissolved into stars. Not a projection, real stars, as though the bulkheads had vanished. The Sol system spread around them, but wrong. Jupiter's bands were sharper, its moons rearranged into perfect tetrahedral orbits. Mars was green. Venus shone ocean blue. And Earth. Earth was encased in a lattice of golden light that extended to cislunar space, a Dyson swarm so dense it looked solid. Creshball stared, unable to process the scale. You thought we died, Mwangi said quietly. We didn't. We just left. Stepped sideways. Found a place you can't see from here. Took most of the population with us. Left a few caretakers behind to keep the lights on and the cradle safe. He turned, and the stars followed his gaze. Your dominion has been very thorough. We watched. Every genocide. Every glassed world. Every species you catalogued and filed under, pacified. We could have intervened sooner. We didn't. Do you know why? Creshball found his voice. Because you feared us. Mwangi smiled without warmth. No. Because you hadn't come here yet. Sol is the line. Everything else was your problem. You cross into the cradle. You deal with us. The humans stepped forward until they were an arm's length apart. Here's the message, Executor. You're going home. All of you. Every ship, every soldier, every spore, and drone. You're going to fly back through the Perseus corridor, and when you get to the far side, you're going to send a broadcast on all channels. You will say, humanity still exists. Sol is forbidden. Forever. And you will mean it. Creshball's frills trembled. And if the Dominion refuses? Then there won't be a Dominion anymore. Not in this timeline. Mwangi raised his hand, and reality rippled. For an instant Creshball saw, not with eyes, but with every sense at once, countless versions of the eternal vigilance layered over the same volume of space like transparent ghosts. Hundreds. Thousands. An armada of one ship, repeated across probabilities, each one crewed, each one awake, each one watching. The vision ended as suddenly as it began. Crashball dropped to his knees. He had never knelt to anything in his life. "We will comply," he whispered. "Good," Mwangi said. "One more thing." He reached out and touched the center of Crashball's forehead with 2 fingers. There was no pain, only a sudden, overwhelming sense of being seen. Every memory, every order given, every world burned, laid bare and judged in less than a heartbeat. When Mwangi withdrew his hand, Crashball was crying, something no Vailari had done in recorded history. "You get to live," the human said gently. "Live long enough to tell them what you saw. Live long enough to stop it happening again. That's your sentence." The chamber dissolved. Crashball found himself back in his shuttle, already accelerating toward the pillar of annihilation. Behind him, the eternal vigilance was simply gone. No jump signature. No wake. Just absence. The fleet followed orders. They powered down weapons, formed up, and crawled away from Sol at sublight until they were far enough out to risk transition. Not one ship disobeyed. Not one captain argued. 6 days later, the remnants of the 4th Suppression Armada limped into Dominion core space. Of the original 12,000 vessels, 411 returned. Grand Executor Crashball went straight to the Imperial Conclave and delivered his report. Word for word. He played the recordings. He showed the sensor logs that still, somehow, contained footage of the impossible human ship. Then he resigned his commission, entered a monastery on the Vailari homeworld, and spent the remaining 93 years of his life warning anyone who would listen that some places must never be touched. The Dominion never returned to Sol. And high above Earth, in a place that was not quite in the same universe, the eternal vigilance kept watch. Sometimes, on clear nights, astronomers on the reborn Mars colonies reported seeing a new star that hadn't been there before, too steady for a nova, too blue for a quasar. It never moved. It never blinked. They called it the Guardian. And somewhere, in a reality adjacent to our own, Captain Elias Mwangi stood on the bridge of a ship that was older than most civilizations, poured himself a cup of coffee that was still hot after 400 years, and waited to see if the next visitor would need a warning or a demonstration.